Hi everybody, it's Claudia from Create with Claudia. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm doing something new and exciting. I was asked by Cotton Cuts to be one of their bloggers for their next puzzle mystery quilt. And this is the So Sweet mystery quilt. And I am Team Churro, which references back to the fabric that I'm using, and I'll tell you about that in a second. And I got my first package and I got my first clue, so I'm ready to get started. So in my first packet, I got the following. I got the packet with the fabric cuts in it, which is really neat, and there's some pens in it. So I'm going to show this to you in a second when I open it up. What's fun about the Cotton Cuts Mystery Quilt is that I'm quilting along with you. I'm getting the clues at the same time, and I'm going to just demonstrate how I put those clues together. Again, I'm on Team Churro, which refers back to this. I got this pamphlet in the first packet, and this is just a really helpful packet. You don't want to lose this. This is the fabric I'm using. It is Bookish by Sharon Holland, from Art Gallery Fabrics. Gorgeous fabrics. I wanted something more muted. I'm also doing the small version of this quilt. And here you can see, you don't want to lose this pamphlet. It has all kinds of helpful hints on the inside, but on the outside, and I would actually suggest snapping a picture of this with your phone, each fabric has fabric A and a picture of what it is. So that's really helpful, and that's going to help you each month. This is a 10-month mystery quilt, and today we're doing clue number 1. Now, when I do this video, it's going to be February of 2022, and so it's not too late if you're watching it around that time, and for the next couple of months, it's not too late to sign up for this mystery quilt. It's a puzzle mystery quilt over at Cotton Cuts. They have them a couple times a year. This is a 10-month event, and you can choose from a large quilt or a small quilt, and all sorts of beautiful colorways. Again, I chose Churro, so it's Team Churro. Go Team Churro. I can't wait to see how everybody's quilts turn out, and I'd love to see the other colorways as well. I'll be following along. They have a Facebook group you can join so you can see everybody's progress. It's lots of fun, and I love a good mystery, both books, movies, whatever, and I love a good mystery quilt too. So when we get started, I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit so you can see the pieces better. You don't need to see me. You need to see the fabric. But the one thing I wanted to show you is each month they send you the instructions for the month, and it'll tell you what pieces you need, how many should be in your pamphlet, and we'll go over that a little bit without giving too much of the mystery away. So let me just adjust the camera, and when I come back, we will put these first sections together for clue number 1 of the So Sweet Puzzle Mystery Quilt from Cotton Cuts. All right, so here are all the goodies I have for the first clue. It's labeled clue number 1. It's really easy to follow, and I'm going to open that up. Here is the pamphlet that has the tips in it on how to sew, as well as the swatch card, which is very helpful. And again, I suggest snapping a picture of that on your phone, because if you're like me, in about couple months this may get misplaced. That's all I'm going to say. I'm pretty good at misplacing things. And then you get the first clue, and it'll have clue number 1. Small clue number 1 is what I'm doing. And you want to make sure you hold on to that, and that's going to tell you everything you need to do to make this first section of the quilt. So we are going to get started. I'm going to open this up. It's like opening a surprise package. I love opening packages. And this is, again, clue number 1. All right, let me put this bag aside. Now, first off, they sent me 2 pens, which I love. Thank you so much to Cotton Cuts. Who doesn't love a pen? And you can always use them, because I'm always misplacing those too. All right, so here are the fabrics. Now I'm going to keep these in order. They're really nicely pressed, so I'm actually not going to press these or anything like that. I'm going to leave them as is. Let me just divide these out a little bit, because you're going to see now fabric A, you're going to look at your card, and you're going to see that fabric A in Churro is this, it looks like books, and that's probably why this line is called Bookish. So I'm going to divide out my fabrics first off. Here we go. Now I want to stay really organized, and one of the things I will do is label these from month to month, just so I don't get my clues mixed up, because you're going to have to be, well, we are going to figure this out together. Again, I'm doing this the same time you are, so hopefully you're watching along, and hopefully this video is going to help you out a little bit. So the first thing I'll do is I'll probably check to make sure. I'm sure they're all here, and if they aren't, we'll figure that out. But you're going to need, it tells you how many pieces of each fabric you need and what sizes. And then we're going to start sewing the pieces together. So the first thing I need, so instruction number 1, the first thing I need is, and I need this closer, number 1, because I can't read it without my glasses on. We need the large triangles of B and D. So I'm going to go here to my chart, and here I see the large triangles of B and D, and the large, this is B, and then the large triangles of D. So now I'm going to sew these together. I'm going to move these all out of the way. We don't need these right now. And basically what it says to do is sew the large triangle to the large triangle. Move these out of the way, like so, and you're just going to use your 1/4 inch seam allowance. You always want to use that 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to place them right sides together, line them up, and it's really nice. They have these wonderful notches here, these nice, the way they were cut out with the machine. And you're just going to sew a 1/4 inch down that side, and I'm going to repeat that with all of the squares of fabric B and fabric D. And then I'm going to press them open and you'll see what they look like. All right, so here's that first unit. And again, we're sewing the fabric B to fabric D, and it even has, the instructions even have the pressing direction, which I always love because I'm always trying to figure out which way to press things. And you may have noticed when I was sewing them together, I don't pin them together or anything. I just, or wonder clip them. Some people do, and that's great. I prefer not pinning. I'm notorious for not pinning, and sometimes it's not good, but you sew the way you want to. But here you go. Here are the 4 units that look like this. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to take one of your units, like so. I'm going to move these out. I'm going to move this colored guide out of the way a little bit. And then they call for 1 large square of fabric B. Of fabric B. And as per the instructions, you're going to lay that together, and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch down this line. So I'm going to lay them right sides together, lining them up along here, and just sew a 1/4 inch down that line. And I'm going to repeat that with the rest of these half square triangles, because that's what we made. That's basically what this is a half square triangle. All right, so I've done that, and I've pressed towards this fabric B. I pressed towards the larger square. And look how nicely they fit. That's why you want to make sure you maintain that 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now these units are ready, and there's one more thing we have to do with these. And basically what we're going to do is we are going to join 2 so it looks like this. And you're going to sew along this edge. We're going to put them right sides facing, and we're going to nest them together. And I'm going to show you that in a second. And this is where I will pin, because we're going to sew a 1/4 inch down this line. And to nest them, that's why it's nice to press the way they suggest. See how nicely they nest together? If you pull that back, you can see how nice that seam's going to be. And I'm just going to put a pin right there, right on that line. And that would be the only place I pin here. You can pin more if you want. But because we use that nice 1/4 inch seam allowance, everything is matching really nicely. And I have not had to trim anything or cut anything. It's awesome. So now I'm going to do that with this set, and I'm going to do that with this remaining set. And then we'll have one section, one part of section 1. Alrighty, so here are my 2 blocks. I think they turned out great. I'm loving this fabric, this Bookish by Sharon Holland. I love the mauve, the real soft colors. I'm enjoying that a lot. So here you go. You have 2 of them. They look the same. They matched perfectly. Nice sharp point there in the middle. I'm loving this mystery quilt. It's all put together for you except for the sewing. Awesome. Okay, so for the next section, we're going to need these smaller triangles of fabric A and fabric D. And we're going to be joining those triangles together, again forming that half square triangle. You're going to make 8 units. So if you remember, we have 12 here. So we don't need all 12 of them. We just need 8 of them. I think that's, put those aside. And we're just going to join those up again using that nice accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance, placing them right sides together, lining them up, and then sewing along that line. And I'm going to do that really quickly over at the machine and then show you how those all turn out. And for these, you are going to press towards the darker fabric. So in my case, it's this pink, but if you're using a different colorway, press to the way your instructions tell you to press. Here are all of my half square triangles nicely pressed. There should be 8 of them all together, and they should measure 2.5 inches square when finished. So then the next part we want to do is get our fabric D strips that look like this. And what we're going to do is add one of these half square triangle units that we just did on each end. So it's going to look like that. And you're going to sew this side to this side, this end to this end, right sides together, again keeping that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that's what your unit's going to look like. And I'm going to go do that now, and you'll see what it turns out to. All right, so here are the next units that I've sewn. Remember, we sewed those small half square triangles to that strip. These should measure 2.5 inches by 8.5 inches. And I checked them and they do, so that's awesome. So the next step we're going to do now, I'm going to set these aside. We're going to bring back one of those squares we made with the 2 half square triangles. And we're going to lay it like so. And it might help to put it in the camera so you can see it. And then we're going to add one of these strips to the left side, and then one of these strips to the right side, like so. Continue with that 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're just going to add, it's going to look like that. We're going to put them right sides together, and then we're going to, now for this longer piece I will pin, and then we're just going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance down that side, and then add the other one to the other side, and we'll repeat it with the other square and the remaining 2 strips that we just did. All right, so here's my finished unit. You can see it here. Here's the other one. Looking good. I have some nice sharp points. I'm happy with those. I always like it when I get a nice sharp point. Believe me, I'm not always successful. So we have 2 of those units, and we're going to set those aside. We're going to keep going here. And now we're going to need the following. We're going to need the rest of those fabric A squares that we put aside. And then you're going to need these squares, which is fabric F. So you're going to need the remaining 4 fabric A squares and those fabric F squares. And we're going to do the same thing we did before, where we're going to join the 2 of them, if I can get 2 of them, place them right sides together facing, line them up, and just sew a 1/4 inch down there, and we'll have 4 half square triangles when we're done. All right. So you can see here the 4 half square triangles. I had to sew one of them again. I sewed the wrong side together. This is a real pale fabric, this fabric A, and I accidentally sewed the back side, so I had to fix that. But here are the 4 half square triangles. They should measure 2.5 inches square. And now we're going to assemble some more. We need these other 2.5 inch squares. I'm going to assemble one strip for you. We're going to lay them out as shown, as I'm going to show you. Like so. And then that fabric C was really pretty. Look at the pretty pinks, some fuchsia in there, some paler pink. Ooh, I like that. A little bit of scribbling on there, even some little teal blue. How pretty is that? So basically you're going to make your strip like this, and you're just going to sew them together, and you're going to make 2 units like this. So again, keeping with that 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're going to sew this to this, these 2 together, these 2 together, then sew those together, that together. I mean, you get the idea. I'll lay them out for you as I go along so you can see. And you're going to make one long strip, which when it's done should measure 2.5 inches by 12.5 inches. All right, so here you go. You can see where I've sewn those two squares together, those two half square triangles in this one. And now we're just going to attach these two sides to this center part. And we're going to repeat that on this one. And then we're going to assemble one more part and we will be done with clue number 1. All right, so here we have these two now finished and sewn. And now we're going to bring back those units we did before. They're going to look like this. I'm going to do one here. I'm going to set the one aside. And then the last thing we have to do with this month's clues, we're going to attach this strip to the top of this unit. It's going to look like that. Let me move it up a little bit. It's going to look like that. And you're just going to use that 1/4 inch seam allowance, and this is where the pressing, they have the pressing guides on the pattern, which is really handy. And I am going to pin here. Next, we want to get those nice sharp points and those nice sharp seams. So I'm going to pin all along here. Alrighty, so here we are. Now I've attached that top strip as I showed you earlier. My camera had a little hiccup, so it cut me off a little bit. But anyway, I attached this to this. It turns out it's looking really nice. I'm excited to see what this quilt's going to look like. This is clue number 1. I'm using the Churro version. You should have 2 units that look like this, and they will measure 12.5 by 10.5 inches when finished. Fingers crossed they do. Mine do, so that's good. If you have any questions, drop me a note in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you. Any colorway, I'm curious what colorways everybody's using. This is Team Churro. I'm curious what team you're on. There's some beautiful fabric choices to choose from. You are still able to sign up, and if you use my code CLAUDIASEWSWEET, and it's on the screen, you get a free gift. I'm not sure how long that lasts. I think that lasts for a little while into the mystery quilt. So make sure to use that code if you're signing up. I hope this has intrigued you to sign up. I have to tell you, it's so well organized. I got an email with the clue. Every month you're going to get your clues. You're going to get your fabric and the clue. And everything's cut for you. It's all pressed beautifully. You don't want to really press it. You don't want to wash the fabrics either. That might mess them up. Came together like a breeze using that 1/4 inch seam allowance. The other thing I really love is in the patterns. It all has arrows on how to press, and that really helps, especially when you're putting together these sections here. So there you go. There's clue number 1 of the Cotton Cuts So Sweet Mystery Quilt starting February 2022. I do hope you'll be joining me. I look forward to finishing this quilt up. I'm ready for March. Let's go. See you next month. Thanks so much for stopping by.